All right, so I finally got around to seeing Fantastic Four yesterday, and I have some big thoughts. So before I get into it, there's this huge, rabid DC versus Marvel fan base war going on, and this movie came out back-to-back with Superman, and both of them had this really nice fuck the normies attitude to just give you these unabated, unedited stories of these characters in their pure forms. That being said, if I could only pick one, I'm going to have to side with Fantastic Four over Superman, because it just delivered more stuff I'd never seen before and more stuff I really, really wanted. I wasn't overall happy with Superman either, and this movie got me more to just a plateau of pure happiness. So yeah, I'm honestly very happy with this movie, very satisfied. Overall, this movie was a huge relief to me on several different levels.
この番組はヨランのスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
The Fantastic Four have always been my uncle's favorite superheroes, and I always grew up seemingly aware that the Four were perfect in the comics, but failed to be adapted adequately in any other form of media. I've heard some of my friends say the 60s Hanna-Barbera cartoon is unironically funny. If you watch it, it's just so bad it's hilarious. Otherwise, I know there was a cartoon in the 90s, but I barely saw it. I think I actively ignored it, despite being very into the 90s Spider-Man and X-Men shows. I was also cautiously aware there was a Hulk and Iron Man show, but I don't think I saw those either because they only aired at 8 a.m. on a Wednesday. There was also a French anime adaptation of the Fantastic Four in the early 2000s. I want to say I caught a few episodes of that, and that didn't totally suck. But yeah, the big Fantastic Four media I've had to live with in my lifetime have been the 3 movies made by Fox, and those movies have kind of been universally regarded as trash. The first 2 Fox movies are just plain pathetic. They're a joke. They really don't have any idea what they're supposed to be about, seemingly made by people with no understanding of who these characters are, the comic book structure of movies, and I don't know, it was just too early in time that people really didn't do comic book movies well. And then years later, we got Fan 4 Stick, Josh Trank's too gritty, too body horror take on the concept, which I will be able to forgive only if Miles Teller rejoins the MCU as the evil Reed Richards, the maker, who has been combing the multiverse in the comic book for a while. Honestly, if they just bring back Miles Teller as the maker, it would honestly completely salvage that movie for the MCU canon. Anyway, a lot of people were praising Superman last week as this big groundbreaking, big shocking movie that just jumped us straight into a new DCU that established Superman and the rest of the world with relatively all the bells and whistles working. Fantastic Four also delivers that, but I would say it delivers that better and on a superior level with a few caveats that I'll point out at the end. Yeah, so this movie dives us into a world where the fully established Fantastic Four has been operating for 4 years into the story. The main thing I love is they just pour out all this amazing Silver Age comic book madness all over the screen, and it's glorious. Now, there's a bunch of big Marvel stories that I want to say stood the course of time and have gone down in history as the best of the best. For Marvel, it's Captain America's origin, Spider-Man on the night when Stacy died, X-Men Days of Future Past, and the Fantastic Four. And for the Fantastic Four, everyone agrees their best single story is the Galactus arc. Now, it's been decades since I read the story, but that was such a good story that's burned into the core of my soul. That what goes down is the Silver Surfer comes to Earth, tells everyone they're gonna die, and about a week later, Galactus shows up to literally eat the Earth bite by bite like a fucking buffet. But in a fantastic, shocking twist out of nowhere, the Fantastic Four reveal that they have the ultimate nullifier, the Earth's biggest, baddest, most brutal fucking gun ever made. And they pretty much scare off Galactus, threatening that if you touch our stuff, we're gonna shoot you in the face until you're dead. A pretty straightforward story, either telling the power of human weapons to quell violence, or long story short, that if a big man is threatening you, all you need is a big enough gun. A weird moral to leave behind for the audience, but hey, it worked for the 60s, and I guess it was some sort of allegory at the time for the uneasiness people were feeling at the Cold War rolling into a zero-sum nuclear missile game, where no one actually wanted to nuke each other until now that people have just forgotten and don't give a shit anymore. Now, I was aware that Marvel probably wouldn't adapt the story straightforwardly ever because it's just a very time period specific story, and it doesn't really gel with the current zeitgeist of people gleefully walking off to World War III. But anyway, I was absolutely surprised that this is an unedited, unabated story of the Fantastic Four soundly defeating Galactus. Like, seeing this legendary story told in the 1960s, that's a fucking dream movie for me. And fair enough, Marvel finally delivered on it. Like, I would have said the only way this could have been better is if after this, the next movie they did was like an uncensored, unedited live adaptation of Steve Ditko's Night When Stacy Died, straight up with like the Halloween costume Green Goblin, set also in the 1970s. But I don't think we'll ever get that movie ever unless Marvel gets the rights to Spider-Man back and fully switches to DC's more artist-driven Elseworlds model for their films, which I don't see happening anytime soon. But yeah, in lieu of that, getting 1960s Day of Galactus, I was so stoked for that. And I have to also like ask after the fact, okay, so was this movie set in the 60s, or due to multiverse time travel sliders nonsense, was it set in an alternate universe 2025 that still has the pop culture, morality, and aesthetic style of the 1960s? Because it screams 1960s, but at the same time, they have like super spaceships and like, I don't know, I didn't see like Richard Nixon or anything that like aesthetically tied the period to the 60s. So anyway, I ask because it matters, because I feel like in the end, when the Fantastic Four suddenly end up in our shade dimension, they're going to be disappointed by like how like much of a dystopia it is compared to like the basic quality of living in the 1960s. The other thing that threw me off was the Thunderbolts. Okay, if you saw the Thunderbolts, spoilers for Thunderbolts, in the post-credits tease at the end of Thunderbolts, they show the Fantastic Four's rocket flying into space, seemingly going to the MCU Earth. And now that I think about it, I have no explanation for that. It doesn't make sense now, but I had assumed up to now that the explanation was going to be some sort of a situation where the Fantastic Four would actually lose to Galactus, or maybe Galactus would steal their baby and they'd have to like traverse the multiverse as either refugees or as a search party looking to find him. Like maybe he had just pieced out into another dimension and they were chasing him down. I honestly did think up until the very end that Galactus was somehow going to like pull it off and successfully eat this Earth and make the Fantastic Four these multiversal orphans, and then they would be fleeing onto a new Earth, therefore the MCU Earth. That's a pretty dark as hell take on it, but it would be cool, and that would be an excuse to throw them into the MCU. It seems like otherwise there is no real story we know until Avengers Doomsday comes out, so I'm kind of torn between the way it ended was good, but I do want them to play in the larger MCU sandbox because I enjoy that. But on the flip side, the larger audience seems to be getting sick of that larger MCU sandbox. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm torn. I also super enjoy the world they've created here, and I would be super happy to just see more of that in another film if they did have a direct analog sequel. Back to Superman for a second. So the hype that a lot of people have with Superman is a lot of people felt that this was the Superman movie that finally got Superman right. I overall didn't feel that. I felt like it was closer, but I feel like I've seen Superman done right before, so maybe I have higher standards. Because let's face it, the other thing is like there's been a lot of Superman media, and while seeing Superman done right in the movies is important, I've seen Superman done right like in Justice League and like the DC animated universe. I've seen projects that get Superman right. It's not like the Fantastic Four where I've literally never seen them done right ever. Like back to Superman, Christopher Reeves, Henry Cavill, they both did the character justice enough, even if Cavill's take was a little bit more pacey and a little bit more alien than I would have preferred. Like Gunn's Superman, the biggest thing that made me happy in Gunn's Superman was seeing Mr. Terrific and Guy Gardner finally getting done justice, because those characters had also never been adapted correctly in media. So for the Fantastic Four, like everything I'm seeing on the screen has never been correctly adapted in media before, and that was more exciting for me than Superman, where it was really just those two guys. Like, I have never seen the Fantastic Four done right at all. So, like, I just thought this was, like, such an excellent movie that I was so satisfied with. Because the previous Fantastic Four movies were all fucking war crimes against the medium of film. And this felt like a long overdue, long needed apology for these characters in particular. All right, so that about covers everything I have to say that was good about this movie. Now I'll be somewhat nitpicky because it wasn't perfect, and people, I think, expect me in these videos to like trash on some aspect of the film. All right, so Still sort of praising it. I did love that at the start of the film, we get a montage of the four fighting their old classic bad guys. Apparently, John Malkovich was cut out as being the wizard in this. And then we go down to this big scene where Mr. Fantastic punches out a gorilla. Now, I was kind of bemused after the fact that they get into the Mole Man story and that he had the whole subterranean empire under the sea in New York. And that ended up being a huge major plot point in the film. Now, my issue with this is, although I enjoyed this, if Mole Man was going to be that big a part of the story in the film, I think they probably should have expanded the Mole Man thing into an entire opening fight in the movie just to give that character a little bit more backstory, because while I loved Mole Man in the film, I love seeing Mole Man, even for me, a long-term Fantastic Four fan, I have to be like, Mole Man, what was his deal? Like, did he want to turn everyone into moles? Did he want to force everyone off the surface of the earth? Did he want to destroy the earth with like earthquakes? Like, I feel like we just needed more Mole Man because he played such a vital role in the film's climax that I needed more of an explanation and refresher on this character. The next thing that a lot of people are bumping up against is the Silver Surfer is randomly a woman and people are screaming, that's woke, it's pandering. The movie tries to justify it by giving her female character some light romantic tension with Johnny Storm throughout the film that kind of gives Johnny something to do, and I think that kind of worked. Although the purist in me would have rather seen the male surfer though, and I think honestly I would have preferred, if they're not doing body horror with the Fantastic Four, they should have leaned into the otherworldly alien qualities of the surfer, because he is this like godly entity. He's supposed to represent like an angel of death in the story, and especially with like Galactus's defeat at the end of the film, it makes it somewhat difficult to pivot back to the male surfer later, unless they're just going to throw out that he's just already out there just cruising around doing nothing. I guess the surfer being female didn't ruin the film for me, but I didn't quite buy it or justify it either. I felt like there needed to be a little bit more of a straight up reason to define this character as different and as a woman, to not have it be a worthless gender swap and actually make the change matter for a reason. Anyway, one other thing I'm going to bump up against is the Fantastic Four has this random black lady they work with, and she's never named in the film, but near the end of the film, I feel like they cross a line with her where they straight up like make it seems like she's their servant or something, or somewhat inferior to them, which feels like a very icky and transparent mirror for the 1960s civil rights movement. Now, I forget exactly what they did, but like early in the film, this lady is like working with the Fantastic Four and like the Future Foundation, and she's like a liaison for them with the United Nations. But then at the end of the film, they're like making her do their laundry, and I'm like, what the fuck? Did they really have to like turn her into like a laundry maid? Was that really necessary? I feel like that was in super bad taste. Then I feel like mentioning this. Now, this didn't bother me, but I know a bunch of other Fantastic Four fans were kind of mad that this didn't lean into the body horror and the angst of like the comics, especially Ben Grimm's whole like story that being the Thing ultimately sucks when you're not punching people in the face. Now, that didn't bother me because like the Josh Trank film embraced that to like 1,000%. So I feel like because that last film was so dark and melodramatic, this film went in the opposite way by completely downplaying it and trying to be like G-rated with it. Anyway, maybe they'll get into it later. I feel like it's in the cards. I will say one thing I am overall mad though with this movie is a random series of stunt casts, and here are the three biggest ones I take offense to. Natasha Lyonne is in this film as Ben's pseudo love interest, but she's not Alicia Masters, which is mega weird. That's his blind love interest from the comics. Now, a lot of people were convinced she was playing Alicia Masters, but the character appears to not be Alicia Masters, just a random woman who has some other name. Her name is apparently Rachel Rosman. So anyway, Natasha Lyonne is this woman who's very hot in Hollywood right now, and I'm not really sure why. I don't think she's like super attractive. I don't think she's like the funniest thing ever. I think she's just kind of weird and quirky, and people are like drawn to her because there hasn't been like a person like that in a while. I guess I'm okay with her presence in the film, but considering she barely does anything, I feel like she's just there for like clout and to hype up the movie. I kind of wish her arc with the Thing actually went somewhere. I can't tell if she's actually into the big oaf or she's just politely leading him on and humoring him because he's such a big, important superhero. I feel like though this whole arc was a setup that is going to be left incomplete and maybe follow up in a sequel film, but if they completely drop the plot line, I'll be kind of pissed about it. The next stunt cast I have major issues with is Pedro Pascal playing Reed Richards, because I feel like he didn't quite commit to the part. Okay, so Pedro's been like everywhere lately. He's been like literally the third like main character in like every other movie that's come out this summer. His casting as Reed Richards therefore feels maximum lazy to me. I guess on top of that, I'm left slightly desiring a little bit more from his performance, or at least I wish he fucking shaved his like 5 o'clock shadow. Like Pedro Pascal has this whole like thing where he is like whole deal is he has a constant 5 o'clock shadow, and I just can't buy that for Reed Richards. Look, I don't care that he has a mustache. I buy that Pedro Pascal doesn't want to shave his mustache, but you gotta convince me that there's no way in hell that a 1960s style world with 1960s style social norms wouldn't have a man style down to the T. Like, I can buy that he would have a mustache because Walt Disney had a mustache, but the 5 o'clock shadow mustache combo is such a weird specific choice because he would have had to specifically shave the mustache and then go out of his way not to shave the rest of it. The other thing is his voice is a little bit goofy. According to reports, Pascal was originally planning to portray Reed with a 1960s North Atlantic time period accent, but the studio made him tone it back for the final film. And I kind of see glimpses of it in the final film, but as a result, because the accent is inconsistent, he just kind of sounds like a waspier, whinier version of himself. Anyway, beyond those two main issues, I otherwise think Pascal did manage to nail Reed Richards' personality traits, his OCD mixed with his honest gumption and like honest like hope for humanity, and that does shine through. But I will also say the movie could definitely have used a few more VFX scenes of Reed just full on abusing his powers for stupid, constantly mundane things. I feel like the movie sneaks in a couple of little ones, but I feel like in the comic books, Reed is just constantly doing the dumbest, most mundane shit with his powers, and I feel like the movie needed a little bit more of that to like add some levity. I feel like this version of Reed, he does it a couple of times, but he doesn't do it frequently enough or fast enough that at points it's like, does this guy even barely have superpowers? So I wasn't happy with that. And the last biggest stunt casting isn't actually even in this movie, but I don't think I'm cool with Downey Jr. playing Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom is only in this movie for like a blink and you'll miss it cameo at the post-credits teaser, but you don't actually even see his face, so it's probably wasn't actually Downey Jr., it was probably a body double. But it raises a high number of questions about like what's going to happen in Avengers Doomsday. Is that just going to be straight up now a Fantastic Four sequel where they fight Dr. Doom and somehow the multiverse Avengers get involved? For all intents and purposes, the MCU was now repivoted to focus around this version of the Fantastic Four, and that's an interesting idea, but I don't know if I'm also good with that. I'm also nervous that the Downey Jr. as Doom thing is a massive stunt cast that's going to backfire in the long run in a sad and pathetic way. Like, some people have contemplated that maybe they're doing this just so that like for the Avengers movies, the main character would be Peter Parker. That could be cool, but I don't know. Otherwise, I feel like we're losing out on like the classic monster Doom with like the melted face, or like the Arnold Schwarzenegger version from the comics. Part of me honestly wishes that like Avengers 4 was going to be Kang Dynasty, because I really do think we do need some more time to build up and introduce this version of Doom, whereas like just pivoting straight to Avengers Doomsday seems like a desperate Hail Mary because the MCU is falling apart, and I'm concerned they don't have the backup and the build up to actually make it work. I guess the last thing people are wondering about is how franchisey this Fantastic Four will be. Like, personally, I would love it if we could get 3 movies out of this team because I did love this movie so much, but it also kind of feels like the setup here is just, here's the Fantastic Four movie, then they're going to be in the 2 Avengers film, and then the entire MCU reboots and we have completely different actors for everyone. I do overall hope this team sticks around, but I also feel like it's a bit rushed and they're definitely going straight into the team's big climax stories maybe too fast, even though going straight into the Day of Galactus was kind of like what made this movie so good with me. Now, overall, I love this movie. I think it's the best MCU movie in decades, maybe. It's definitely the best one since Endgame, which I know that's what everyone fucking says, but I'd say it's true this time. I guess I'm just overall concerned about the long-term plans for the Fantastic Four and where these guys are going to go in the next couple of movies. All right, leave me one in the comments. Did you like this movie? Did you hate this movie? Did you think it was better than Superman? Do you hate all the stunt casts? I hate all the stunt casts. That's where I'm at. All right, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. Later.